Welcome back. Now, in this video, I want us to talk about what makes the peace plan unique. And we use a little acrostic called the pillars of peace, Pillars, each letter representing one of the things that makes the peace plan unique. When you think about the 5 things that peace plan does, plant churches, equip leaders, assist the poor, care for the sick, educate the next generation. For hundreds and hundreds of years, organizations have been doing these. Churches and organizations have been doing these things. And there are many that do them today. Some organizations specialize on just one. We're going to plant churches, or we're going to assist the poor, or we're going to care for the sick. But the church has to do all of them. And it has to be holistic. And more than that is how we do it. What makes the peace plan unique is who does it and how it's done, not what is done. What is done is being done by a lot of other people. Planting churches, equipping leaders, assisting the poor, caring for the sick, educating the next generation. But how it's done and who does it makes all the difference in the world. This is what we call the Second Reformation. It's the new Reformation of the church. The first Reformation was about theology. This one is getting back to biblical methodology, doing it the way Jesus did it, doing it the way the apostles did it. So, what are the 7 things that make the peace plan unique? Well, the P in pillars stands for plants and partners with local churches. This is the first distinctive of the peace plan. We plant and we partner with local churches. First and foremost, peace is about reclaiming the primacy of the local church's role in global missions. Too often today, churches are outsourcing their missions to mission organization. And they're saying, let that mission do it, let that mission do it. And the attitude is pay, play, and stay out of the way. Pay, pray, and stay out of the way. But no, God has called your church to be on mission and to not rob your people from actually doing mission. Now, peace is a local church-based strategy. It is not a parachurch-based strategy. It is not a ministry strategy. It is not an organizational strategy. It is not a denominational strategy. It is a church-based, local church-based strategy. You can't do the peace plan anywhere else except through the local church. One of the things the peace plan does is it honors and values the unique role that only congregations have in their communities. Because of their location, because of their composition, who the members are, because of their motivation, because of their longevity, they've been in the village for a long time, because of their credibility, churches are the best organization to tackle the 5 giants at the grassroots level. In the past 75 years, local churches actually started giving up their responsibility to government first, and then to other Christian organizations, and then to just other humanitarian organizations. All the responsibilities that were given to the local church for 2,000 years are now being done by everybody except the local church. This is the Reformation we must have. Peace returns the role of what Jesus did to the local congregations. And it makes pastors the heroes, and it makes local churches the heroes again. If you don't want to be a part of that, you're not going to want to be a part of peace, because it's not about your ministry, your organization, your association. It's about your local churches doing the 5 things Jesus did at a local level. Let me give you a little history. For 1,900 years, the first 1,900 years of Christianity, local churches were the only center of ministry to a community. We didn't have Christian radio. We didn't have Christian books. We didn't have Christian TV. We didn't have Christian ministries. We didn't have parachurch ministries. We didn't have charities. We didn't have benevolences. We didn't have NGOs. Now, we thank God for all those great ministries. But the downside of all those great ministries is they have created a problem. And the problem is that in the average church, The average member does nothing on mission. They have the leave it to the professional mentality. In other words, we don't know enough to do on mission. And instead of the church doing the mission, the church is being asked to support other organizations who do the mission. And they say, give us your time, give us your money, give us your members, give us your support while we do the ministry. We say, no. We should reverse that. For 1900 years, the local church was on the front line doing the ministry. And now all of these parachurch organizations are on the front line doing the ministry, saying, give us your time, give us your members, give us your money to support us. There's only one problem. There aren't enough people in the parachurch organizations to get the job done. 99% of all believers are in the local church. So we leave 1% doing all the work and 99% doing nothing. And the Great Commission becomes the Great Omission. In other words, we forget it. I was at a conference once on global malaria, and there were all these different organizations talking about how they would try to solve malaria. And I stood up and I said, I want to prove to you that we could only solve malaria through local churches because we have more distribution. I could take you to 10 million villages. The only thing in it's a church. The first thing in any village is a church. The second thing in a village is a bar. They may not have a store, they may not have a post office, they may not have a fire department, they may not even have a school, but they got a church and they got a bar. And so if we're going to be going to every nation and to every tribe and every village, we've got to use churches. Now, here's the problem at this White House conference. Other people were talking about, well, but the churches aren't educated to do this. The churches aren't trained to do this. And you know what I told them? And this shocked them. I said, here's the difference between me, Rick Warren, and every other parachurch organization, ministry organization. They're all good organizations, but here's the difference between them and me. I trust pastors and you don't. That's the difference between purpose-driven peace plan and everything else, is that we trust pastors. We believe they're called of God, they're trained of God, and we believe they're better equipped to know their village better than anybody else, far more than somebody coming in from the outside, from the government, from an NGO, from a parachurch ministry, even me coming in from the outside. That local church pastor knows more about that community than anybody else. So when we say we work with the church, we don't just mean we use the church for our program. No, that's what everybody else does. We come to a church and say, what do you need? And we ask that church. We serve the church, and this church serves the community. I was talking to a mission team that had come back to America one time in another church, and they had been helping in an orphanage. And I said, well, did you ever involve the church there, local church there? And they said, oh, we work with the church. I said, what do you mean we work with the church? They said, oh, well, we actually slept in their church on the floor. I said, did you take anybody with you? Did you train anybody? No. Then you didn't help the church. You helped yourself. Who did you make the hero? You made yourself the hero. We want to make the local church the hero. We don't want Saddleback Church to be the hero. We want your church to be the hero. The biggest difference between the peace plan and every other ministry plan is this question: who gets the credit? Does the local church, that indigenous church there in that village, do they get the credit, or does your organization get the credit? See, this is the big difference. We are very, very committed to the fact of giving all the glory to the local church. As a pastor, I tell young men who are getting married, I said, if you're going to get married, you're going to have a wedding, you need to understand that in every wedding, the star of the wedding, the star is the bride. And the co-star is the mother of the bride. Everybody else is just a supporting cast, because it's really all about the bride. And at the wedding, the glory goes to the bride. We believe this is true in theology too. The glory belongs to the bride. The Bible says Christ died for the church. The glory should not go to any organization. The glory should not go to any country. The glory should not go to any individual. The glory should not go to any ministry. The glory should go to the bride of Christ, that local church. Now, we have many values. Every church is both a sending and receiving congregation. That local church gets the credit for everything that's done. We believe that the church is the hope of the world. We believe that only the church is going to last. 1,000 years from today, if Jesus Christ has not come back, there won't be a United States of America, because no nation, no empire lasts forever. There won't be a Microsoft or Apple Corporation or a Walmart Corporation. There won't be a World Vision organization or Compassion, but there will be a church. Why? Because it's the only thing that's going to last. Christ died for the church. He didn't die for my ministry. Now, we trust pastors, and the glory belongs to the bride. Now, we believe in also imitating Jesus' model. That's the second letter in pillars. First is we partner with local churches. I in pillars is we imitate Jesus' model. Peace is built on what Jesus did, not what I have done, not what Saddleback done, not what some other American church has done, not even what your church has done. Peace is built on the framework for missions, on the actual instructions of Jesus. In Matthew chapter 10 and in Luke chapter 10, Jesus gives 17 instructions to the peace teams that he sent out on mission. And to my knowledge, there is no outreach that has ever followed those instructions. I don't know a single mission board that's following all 17 instructions that Jesus said. In another video, we can go into those. I don't have time to go into them right now, but the truth is we learn by doing. And so we say, just start serving. And we don't do a lot of pre-service training. Those of you who come from churches that do a lot of training before you let people serve, we say, do a minimal amount of pre-service training and just go, and then do on-the-job training the rest of your life. And we do oral training for oral learners. By the way, when I grew up, I was taught missions is that in missions, being a missionary meant you pray for the people who are missionaries. And you study all about what God is doing around the world in and through missionaries. And then you give. Then maybe at the very end, you might go actually on mission yourself. In the peace plan, we reverse that process completely. And we say, just go. Start by going. Just go. Don't pray, don't give, don't serve, don't study. Just go. Why? Because I know if I get someone on the field somewhere around the world seeing what God is doing in the midst of local churches, it's going to capture their heart. And when they come back to their home church, they want to study, they want to pray, they want to give. You know, at Saddleback Church, I now have over 26,000 members who have gone overseas and served in peace plan efforts through local churches all around the world. We've gone to every single nation, 196 nations. We're the only church to go to every nation in the world. And when they came back, you know what it did? It changed my church. I now pastor a church full of missionaries. This could happen in your church if we imitate what Jesus said to do. He just sent them out. Sometimes Paul would appoint elders after 2 weeks and then leave. Obviously, his idea of training was a whole lot different than ours. Now, the third pillar in what makes peace unique, the L, is it liberates a lay army. It liberates the normal members of the church. Peace is a lay member movement, transforming ordinary members of churches from spectators into participators and mobilizing them for ministry and mission all around the world. The truth is there aren't enough professionals to get the job done. We need more professional missionaries. We need professional doctors and teachers and others to meet the global giants. But there aren't enough professionals. There will never be enough doctors to put one doctor in every village in the world. There just never will. But in the peace plan, everybody can participate in a personal peace plan, a local peace plan, and a global peace plan. Peace is a lifestyle of caring. And peace, you might want to write this down, is done by amateurs, not by professionals. Remember, professionals built the Titanic. Amateurs built the Ark. Which one lasted? You know, I love this word amateur, which means you're not paid to do something. A professional means you're paid to do it. An amateur means you volunteer to do it. And the word amateur literally comes from the Latin word out of love, amore, amateur. And you do it out of love. Did you know that I am an amateur pastor? That I have served my church now for free for 35 years. Nobody pays me to do that. I was able to write books and earn an income through that way. So I'm an amateur pastor. I do it out of love. And I'd rather have somebody doing it out of love than out of money. Now, intentionally short-term ministries we do through Peace Plan. They are group-based. We send them out in small groups. We never send individuals out as individuals. Jesus always sent them out in groups, always at least two by two. And what we have is volunteers equipping volunteers, not paid staff. And leaders from one church, volunteers going to train leaders in another church who are volunteers. That's the liberating the lay army. The second L in pillar means it links public, profit, and church sectors, the public, profit, and faith sectors. Peace is about partnerships. And one of the things we could teach you to do as your church begins to grow in the peace plan is how you can partner with government and business in what we call the three legs of the stool. It connects churches to work together, and then it connects businesses and ministries and NGOs and even when possible government to work together. The level of collaboration is what we call the three legs of the stool. Let me give you a little background story on this. A number of years ago, I was invited to speak at the Davos World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This is the biggest conference for bankers and top business leaders in the world held once a year. And they pay a lot of money to go to this, but I was just invited to come and speak. And I kept hearing people there talk about the problems in the world, like poverty, disease, illiteracy, corruption. And I kept hearing people say, what we need is partnership between business and government, between the profit sector and the private sector, or the private sector and the public sector. And they asked my opinion, and I said, well, I agree you need partnerships, but you're missing what I call the third leg of a stool. If you have a stool you're going to sit on, you have to have at least three legs. A one-legged stool will fall over. A two-legged stool will fall over, but three legs will provide stability. And so there are some things that only the government can do. That's one leg of the stool. There's some things only business can do. That's another leg of the stool. And there's some things that only churches can do. That's the third leg of the stool. When I first explained this to the president of Rwanda and then to the parliament of Rwanda, they got it immediately, and they realized that their nation could start growing and developing much, much faster, rebounding from the genocide, if they involved all three legs of the stool. That if it wasn't just the government growing the nation, and it wasn't just the businesses growing the nation, but if they activated the churches to do their role that only churches could do, then we would see great growth. And that's exactly what's happened. It has become a casebook study that is studied in business schools all around the world. And it's based on the peace idea of the three-legged stool. Now, this kind of close collaboration has never been attempted before, but we're doing it in Rwanda with the three legs of the stool, and we can do it in your country, and we can do it in your city. You can start at a community level with the city hall and the community council. Now, the A in pillars stands for attacks all five giants. The peace plan doesn't just care about one thing. There are some ministries that only care about planting churches. There are some ministries that care about only feeding the poor and caring for caring the sick. But peace is comprehensive. It's holistic. It attacks all 5 problems because all 5 problems are intertwined. And you cannot solve the problems without the spiritual dimension. You see, government tries to solve these problems while ignoring the spiritual dimension of poverty, the spiritual dimension of disease. Why do people get diseases like AIDS? The spiritual dimension behind corruption, the spiritual dimension that keeps people uneducated. And so the government ignores the spiritual realm, and a lot of NGOs or parachurch organizations typically specialize, but the church must be called to care about everything, all 5 giants: spiritual emptiness, the lack of servant leaders, extreme poverty, disease, and illiteracy in education. We cannot outsource this responsibility. You cannot ask other people to do what God has called your church to do. The R in pillars stands for it releases the power of networks. It releases the power of networks. Peace is a network for missions. It's a framework, it's a way to do mission, but it's also a network. It's a partnership of missions. And actually, peace is a network of networks, the Peace Coalition. We don't want you to leave your denomination. We don't want you to leave your association. We don't want you to leave your fellowship. Peace is a network of networks that is decentralized, unleashes bottom-up energy instead of top-down energy. It's not controlled from the top, it's bottom-up. And we use technology that wasn't even available 15 years ago for global collaboration. And this new wineskin allows us to empower churches to work directly with each other, church to church. And so we can connect your church in your country to another church in another country, and you can be giving and receiving and sharing and training, and both churches benefit together. It's church to church. You know, throughout history, every time the distribution of God's word is expanded through new technology, it brought a great harvest. In 1440, Gutenberg invented the printing press. And less than 50 years later, actually in 1517, Luther wrote his 95 Thesis, 77 years later, and flooded Europe because the printing press made the Reformation possible. Another Reformation started happening in 1969, technology. There was a thing called Arpanet. You probably never heard of it. But that created what eventually became the internet. And today, we using the internet are doing online training all around the world, 24 hours a day, helping you. We have many different modules that we want to help you with. Pastors.com is a website. Saddleback Church is a website. The Peace Plan is a website. And we have different modules to help mobilize your members, to help you organize peace trips, e-learning, training, helping you understand your community, your nation better, and helping you network with other churches, church to church. All of these are available to help you. And as we continue to grow, you will be committing and you will be helping and you will be serving and sending information that other churches will be benefiting from. The final letter in the word pillars, the pillars of peace, is the word S, and that stands for sustainable, scalable, and reproducible solutions. What does that mean? Sustainable means it runs on its own. It doesn't need a new source of money all the time. Scalable means it can go from small to large. Reproducible means you can multiply it over and over and over and over. Peace Plan is a reproducible model. By training local churches rather than doing it for themselves. Now listen very closely to me. The Great Commission is fundamentally about training. The Bible says in the Great Commission, teach them to do everything I've commanded you to do. It doesn't say do it for them. It says teach them to do. That's called training. Teach them to do everything I've commanded you. Don't do it for them. Here's the problem with most mission projects today. We do it for people. We send a team in, we say, we're going to build you a building. We're going to do a program for you. We do stuff for them. When you do that, it robs dignity. It creates dependency. It destroys creativity. It has all kinds of negative problems. What are you going to do for me next? No, instead, we don't do things for people in peace. All peace that's doing for people is at a local level. On a national and an international level, we teach them to do. So, for instance, when we went to Rwanda, we have sent doctors to train doctors, not to do doctoring, but to train doctors. We've sent teachers to train teachers. We've sent landscapers to train landscapers. We've sent policemen to train policemen and judges to train judges. We've sent youth workers to train youth workers. We've sent gardeners and farmers to train gardeners and farmers. Everything we do in peace is training. Why? Because the Great Commission says teach them to do. Don't do it for them. We don't ever do anything for them. And we don't even spend a lot of money because the first thing Jesus said is don't take a purse. We'll come to that in another video. Peace fosters development, not dependency. And that creates what we call sustainability. And you create sustainability by creating income-generating projects, not by appeal letters, not by always asking for donations. If you have to ask for donations, that's not sustainable. If you create income, that is sustainable. We can teach you how to do this in the peace plan. The antidote to poverty is job creation, not charity. Charity robs dignity. Charity creates dependency. And for the long term, trade always beats aid. We believe in wealth creation, that it beats wealth redistribution. Now, the Great Commission will never be fulfilled through garage sales and bake sales. It has to be done through sustainability. And what we say for that is we're responsible to people, but we're not responsible for people. When your church partners with another church, you're responsible to that church, but you're not responsible for that church. Because when you take responsibility for others, you take it away from them, and it robs them. So we train others how to do it for themselves. We never do it for them. Do you see how different the peace plan is? We are reinventing how you do it. We are reinventing mission funding, a new paradigm for support. You know, when my mother cooked when I was a young boy, we lived in a little village of 500 people growing up. And one day, a neighbor brought over a little jar, and in it she had what was called starter dough, like the dough that rises for bread, starter dough. And every time my mother wanted to make a cake or pancakes, she would pull out that starter dough, put it in a big can or a pan, and then she would add flour and water and mix it all together and put a cloth over it overnight, and the starter dough would spread that yeast and spread the yeast, and it would rise and rise and rise. And the next day, my mother could take it and make pancakes or make a cake or make biscuits or some kind of bread with leavening. But before she would do that, she would always take a little bit of the starter dough out, put it in that jar, tie it on real tight, and put it back up on the shelf. That initial starter dough that was given to us by our neighbor lasted my mom over 20 years. That's the only kind of giving we do in the peace plan. Money can actually create more problems than it's worth. We believe that the resources for the harvest are in the harvest itself. What we need to do is give a hand up rather than a hand out. And we create self-sustaining work by creating jobs, by creating trade, not aid. As I said, wealth creation, not wealth redistribution. Now, all of these things are done through the local church. And I want to challenge you to think about reforming the way your church does missions. Stop outsourcing missions. Accept the responsibility to do missions of the people, by the people, for the people, to the people, and church to church. We can teach you what to do, the peace plan. We can teach you how to do it through the peace pillars. And we can train you in ways that will amaze you and change your church and change the world. God bless you.